My name is Kycell, and I now prepare myself to discover the dark history of the Minotaur King and his war against the Rakshasi as I begin Chapter 28. Krunturg and his squire, the young Minotaur Kind, who he considered barely more than a calf, stood before the castle gates of their home kingdom Goldenirod, staring in horror at the decapitated head of Kind's father, Fam. All that the man had suffered, captured slavery, and being forced to duel his own people for the safety of his family and the entertainment of the despot former king Birk Mindas, only to be slain and displayed so horrifically, was more than Kind could bear. Falling to his knees and bellowing out a painful bray from the core of his being, Kind agonized more than he would ever allow himself for the rest of his days. Krunturg took in the sight and let his rage begin to build. Climbing the gate with tact and precision, as to not maim the head further, Krunturg retrieved it from the gory pedestal. For only a brief moment, Krunturg pondered where the rest of Fam's remains were being stored. As he lifted Kind from the grass, handing the severed head to Kind, who cradled it like a mother with a newborn, he surveyed the courtyard. The enraged king spotted no patrols, no guards in general, until a pair of nonchalant humans made their way from the eastmost tower, carrying what looked like a massive bundle of cloth draped over a large humanoid frame. Sprinting with the speed of an avalanche, Krunturg barreled towards the two, stopping less than a foot away, startling them.
Oh, whoa, hey, did we miss one?
Spoke the shorter of the pair.
Wait, that's the king!
Both put hands to their waistbands and made to draw small, curved Alazandian swords. But before they could so much as take a breath, Krunturg had one by the throat and 2 feet off of the ground, while simply backhanding the second, sending him sprawling into the grass with a broken neck. While the still-living human struggled in Krunturg's grip, a now more in control of his senses Kind ran to what was obviously a cloth-draped body and uncovered it. The figure inside was indeed a minotaur, but she was female and still had her head intact. Kind alerted Krunturg it was Dwazella. She ran a flower shop in Goldenirod. Loosening his grip enough to allow the captured man to speak, but first disarming him of his sword, Krunturg demanded to know what was happening to his town.
The second you left and those frogmen disappeared, those big catfolk rounded up all the minotaurs in town, starting with him.
The flailing man gestured to the head of Fam, which Kind was once again carrying.
They said this town was under new rule and things would be a lot smoother for the humans if we did what they said.
Tightening his grip once again, Krunturg bellowed to be told where they were keeping the Minotaurs, and where was the Rajelasad family. The man pointed shakily to the tower he and the dead man had just left. Then in the direction of the large royal mausoleum where Krunturg had defeated that Mindas ghost when he was still captured. Thanking the despicable man, then bashing him in the nose with the brunt of his horns, Krunturg let the body crumple to the ground. He turned to Kind and looked him in the face. All Kind could manage was to mumble, wanting to see his father. So the pair headed to the tower they were told the Minotaurs were being held. Heaving the massive doors open, the pair was immediately assaulted by the stench of rotting hide. The gruesome sight before them were piles of dead Goldenirod citizens. The vast majority were dismembered and beheaded Minotaurs. Those of other races, Krunturg deduced, must have been sympathizers who attempted to counter the Rakshasi's brutal coup. What was worse, among the carnage, was that there were still a number of elderly and children that remained, milling about the bodies and cowering in corners at the arrival of Kind and Krunturg. Seeing the new intruder was their true king, many children rejoiced and elderly pleaded, comforting them as best he could while continuing to contain his growing state of frenzied hatred for the Rajelasad family. Krunturg searched among the bodies for Fam, but it was Kind who first spotted the body wreathed in royal robes and armor, gifted by Krunturg to his greatest friend in these lands. King Krunturg let the boy to mourn. He told the young and feeble citizenry to remain in this horrid tower for just a few more moments. He was off to reclaim his kingdom. Kind lifted from his grieving long enough to tell Krunturg he would see that they remained safe until he returned. Krunturg turned to leave, knowing Kind was more than strong enough to handle any threat in his absence. He left the kingdom's future in his squire's hands. As the young lad prepared to give his father a dignified send-off, he was encircled and embraced by the other youthful Minotaurs, including his future wife. Storming the massive sepulchre where Krunturg confronted the mummified ghost, he encountered no armed forces or treacherous humans, much to his surprise. The mausoleum was massive, and the steep stairs to enter its core seemed moments away from crumbling to dust. He arrived at the entryway of the inner crypt, but still saw nothing. He began to ponder if that guard had fooled him, when the heavy and clawed treads of a carnivorous quadruped rang out through the tomb. Not one, but a pair of enormous striped tigers slinked around the corner of an overturned casket. One had a large humanoid femur grayed with age between its jaws. The other licked its jowls at the sight of Krunturg. One peculiar aspect of these tigers was the solid golden pipe-thick chain draped around their frames. These bizarre leashes stretched deep into the crypt beyond Krunturg's sight. But as his senses heightened for the ensuing battle, he could hear the sound of whimpering coming from the shadows beyond the dark where the chains seemed to end. Unsheathing his craghammer as to put an end to this distraction, freeing him to pursue the Rakshasa, Krunturg went to battle. At his show of hostility, both tigers pounced simultaneously, causing a muffled yelp from who or whatever they were bound to from the shadows. Conserving his rage for the more important battle ahead, he attempted the same tactic he employed moments ago with the hapless humans. With his craghammer, he swatted one cat away, the thunderous blow pulverizing, and the sound of meat and cracking bones filled the crypt walls. He grabbed the second with his unarmed hand. However, tigers being better equipped than humans, with its massive claws, it rended the skin of Krunturg's stomach with kicks and flails. Releasing it to give himself distance, the second tiger limped to its feet and jumped for Krunturg's back. A second backhanded swing cleanly decapitated the beast, loosening the chain around its body and head. When Krunturg squared off with the still completely healthy second tiger, the chain of the dead one retreated as if being pulled from the darkness. This sight took Krunturg's attention just for a moment, which was enough for the second tiger to tackle him and knock him to the ground. As he held it off with his craghammer of cord and prepared to lift himself free from the gnashing teeth, the pitter-patter of human feet rang out as two figures sprung from the darkness and clutched either side of the tiger. Before his very eyes, the beast before him began to howl in pain as its body became solid gold, a sight Krunturg hadn't seen since King Birk punished Fam and the Man-Reaper. Before him stood the adolescent daughters of Mindas, hands radiating with the chrysiopedic powers of their father.
Like, if you promise to get us out of here, we'll totally give you back the kingdom.
Kind continued to tell me the story of Krunturg's return. The jaw-wiring full casts and numerous freshly stitched scars did little to slow him down. I was totally enraptured, and deeply regretting Ahani not being here to write it down in greater detail.
And those two girls, Willadine and Clarabella Mindas, well, they were about the most helpful and most harmful things Krunturg could have encountered in the castle that day.
I myself had nearly forgotten about King Birk's children. They were never addressed in my professor's original excerpt on the Mindas family, and in all my time in Goldenirod I hadn't heard nor seen hide nor hair of them. I was prepared to engage further in Kind's tale, pen at the ready, when the sound of screams and running students filled the halls of the wing Dr. Silibin at Esteliz had assured me was nearly abandoned for the time being. I got up from the desk chair I had been seated in and poked my head from the doorway. Students were fleeing in droves. I attempted to catch one of them and asked what was happening.
It's Andronian Knights. They've taken the school hostage.
The young dwarf continued to run for his life the moment I let him go. I turned to Kind to make sure he had heard the young man as well.
What are those fools thinking? The Rajal Assad would sooner kill every citizen in Goldenirod than give over a prisoner like that Aksor chump.
That comment jolted through me. If Kind was correct and the castle sent forces to kill the attacking Andronian Knights, they could discover Kind, and his son's life would be in even greater danger. I backed from the door to think on what to do, but Kind was already trying to shift out of bed, fussing with his casts and groaning at every broken stitch in his chest as he knelt forward. I tried to force him back to bed and away from his belongings Nurse Estelise had left in the corner of the room. But even in his mortally wounded state, I could do little to slow the massive Minotaur mare's bulk. But then I heard the door I had abandoned swing back open, and Kind tensed in his movement.
Oh, gentlemen, please, there is no need to stand on my account.
Before us stood what one would classify as a storybook hero come to life. A striking-looking human with flowing golden hair, adorned in sharp-edgedly pronged and brass-colored armor, polished more brightly than a priceless jewel. He hoisted a lengthy spear in our direction, its overly ornate design equally sharp-edgedly pronged and brass-colored as his plate.
My name is Artois Valois, Lieutenant of the Morongo Knights, and you two are my hostages.
Hi, my name is Matthew Lewis, and I do the voice of Kycell Bakshi along with all the additional voices in The Forgotten Minotaur King. I hope you enjoy the podcast and continue to listen into the future. If you want to support my content, please donate to my Patreon, Matthew Lewis Podcasts. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, Matthew Lewis Podcasts, all one word. Follow me on Twitter at Matthew Lewis P. Or leave a positive maximum star review on your podcast app of choice. If you found this podcast, I assume you're familiar enough with the genre to know how important reviews are to the survival of a channel. And I hope you recommend this to your friends. Or if you didn't like it, you could recommend it to your enemies, and I'll teach them a lesson. Keep it sleazy, folks, and thank you.